Welcome. My name is Adam Kelly. I'm president and founder of eOnlineBenefits.com. Welcome to our 401k e-solution presentation. I'd like to introduce you to my family. They make me look, well, pretty darn good. I had the opportunity to play football 3 years at the University of Minnesota. My last 2 seasons, I played under legendary football coach Lou Holtz. And Coach Holtz used to say to us religiously that coaches should coach, players should play, and administrators should administrate. The reason I share with you that simple phrase is this is how I base my business life. Coach Holtz never had to make a tackle or punt a football in a game, but he did have the ability as a head coach to get his players to play to their utmost ability and eventually lead him to win a national championship at Notre Dame. He also had the ability to oversee the administrators at the schools that he was at and get them to provide the tools that he needed and the proper things to succeed as a football coach. We think we've built a pretty amazing 401k solution, and I'd like to introduce you to my partner, former co-founder of ePlan Services, Mark Gutrich.
After 15 years as an independent concern, we were acquired by Paychex in May of 2011. Paychex saw the revolutionary approach that we took to 401k plans, both from an open architecture investment standpoint, as well as the convenient, intuitive websites, flexible, efficient applications, and obviously superior customer service. Any discussion about 401k plans has to include a discussion around the Employee Retirement Income Security Act of 1974, or as is popularly known as ERISA. ERISA is the regulatory body that governs all qualified retirement plans, and the regulatory agency that is in charge of enforcing ERISA is the U.S. Department of Labor Employee Benefits Security Administration. There are a variety of materials available on the DOL website, but one of the most important is the brochure about understanding and meeting fiduciary responsibilities. Many of the actions involved in an operating plan make a person or an entity performing them a fiduciary. Fiduciary is not just a function of title, but more a function of how things are performed within a plan. The paramount duty of a fiduciary is to act with essential responsibilities under ERISA for the best interests of the plan and its participants. Prudence is a focus of this process for making fiduciary decisions, whereby you can back how you came to the conclusions about your plan. One of the more recent focuses of the Department of Labor under ERISA has been around understanding fees and expenses in 401k plans. As a plan fiduciary, an obligation under ERISA is to prudently select and monitor plan investments, investment options made available to plan participants and beneficiaries, as well as all the service providers who perform functions for the plan. By far the largest component of plan fees and expenses associated with the investment options in a 401k plan. These fees are typically expressed as a percentage of assets, and they're deducted directly from the investment prior to reporting their returns. But as a result, many plan sponsors and participants don't fully understand the impact that fees have on their 401k plan. In recognition of this fact, in late 2010, the U.S. Department of Labor proposed new guidelines regarding disclosures for plan sponsors and participants. The plan sponsor disclosure is called the Rule 408B2 and is distributed to plan sponsors annually. The plan level or plan sponsor fee disclosure is required to disclose all fees paid to third parties from plan assets, but does not cover any expenses borne by the employer or plan sponsor themselves or that are paid by individual participants within the plan. As a result, the Rule 404A5, or the participant disclosure, was required as well. This required the ancillary disclosure of all asset-based charges as well as individual participant-based charges, but does not overlap with the 408B2 and therefore excludes employer-paid fees as well as fees paid by third parties. As with all regulatory initiatives, the manner and way that individual persons or providers comply with the regulation can vary greatly. As you can see from this slide, there was an independent survey conducted after the release of the new regulations to evaluate the completeness of the information disclosed in 5 key categories. They ranked the top 20 401k providers in the country, and as you can see from the scores, the way and manner in which people conform to the regulation can vary greatly. Specifically, when you look at the estimate of cost, this is where the opaqueness of a provider like Morgan Stanley with Nationwide can really be detrimental to a plan. In addition, alongside all these initiatives, the Department of Labor has undertaken an extended program to review or evaluate every 401k plan in the country in the next 5 years. As a result, they keep a scorecard on the public website of the DOL, which can be accessed at the URL at the bottom there. But the pressing issue here is that in 2013 alone, the Department of Labor opened over 3,600 investigations, 73% of which resulted in some kind of fine or action against the employer. So this just highlights the need for employers and fiduciaries to be aware of their 401k plans. To make matters worse, alongside all this regulatory evolution, back in 2008, the Supreme Court reversed a long-standing legal precedent, whereby in the LaRue versus DeWolf case, the court held that plan participants may now sue their employers for ERISA claims. This was an important change because prior to this finding, individuals could not sue plans themselves for their individual benefit. It had to be a class action for the benefit of all participants in the plan, and therefore the statute was much higher than it is currently with an individual level ability. As a result, this has created a giant increase in the number of lawsuits that have been filed for around ERISA claims. Some of the more notable settlements in recent years are displayed here on the left. Obviously, we're using big name firms to highlight the issue, but as you can also see, the value of these settlements have steadily increased over the last 3 years. In addition, there are active lawsuits by employees suing their own firms, including financial powerhouses like Ameriprise Financial, Fidelity, and SunTrust banks. But then in addition, customers are now suing plan providers under the same statute, including John Hancock, Nationwide, and Principal. So depending upon where your 401k plan is housed, these could be very useful and things you need to be paying attention to. In order to highlight how nobody is above the law, you can look at the Fidelity case. Fidelity is the single largest retirement plan provider in the United States, and it was sued by its own employees over their own 401k plan, which was dominated by Fidelity funds and therefore claimed not to be prudently selecting investments. In order to help quantify some of the information we've just discussed, I showed this sample comparison to show you the differences that can be unearthed when looking into individual investment options. What this screenshot shows you is at the top the retail share class, and in the middle the institutional share class. So if we just look at the first fund in the list, the DFA Emerging Markets Value Fund, in both cases it's the same name, same management team, same management tenure, same overall ratings from Morningstar. But then when you get to the expenses, you can see that the retail version of this fund costs 1.48%, whereas the institutional version is just 0.61%. When you're dealing with the exact same basket of investments and just a different expense ratio, that has a direct impact on the returns that that fund will generate. So if you look at the very bottom, you can see when we just stack this list up side by side, the exact same investments, the exact same managers, the performance varies quite a bit over the 1, 3, and 5-year periods, and that's greatly due to the fact the expense ratio is more than 70 basis points less expensive. So again, to add a little more context to some of the theories I've talked about, this is an example of a 408B2 plan disclosure from Principal. Principal does a reasonably good job of explaining where the fees are. So if you look at the columns in the table below, you'll notice that there are two columns, one with red dots. The red dots represent the add-on fees the principal has attached to each of those mutual funds listed there. This is an example of a 408B2 disclosure, or the plan sponsor disclosure from John Hancock. Again, they do a fairly good job of outlining the fees related to the investments. So if you look at the yellow box within the table there, you see column 1 is underlying fund expenses, which means what is the expense of the actual mutual fund. The second are administrative or maintenance charges. This is typically the revenue share that is paid from the mutual fund company to a provider like John Hancock. And then thirdly is the proprietary asset charge that John Hancock lays on top of those investments to generate their own revenue and pay salespeople and service people. So as you can see, when you look at the first line, the Columbia Value and Restructuring Fund, the actual fund expense is 0.91%. But when you add the administrative as well as the sales and service fees, the plan in this case was paying 1.53% for something that they could access directly at 0.91. As I said before, the way that providers comply with regulation can differ. So in this case, which was a nationwide plan, we had to look at the 404A5 disclosure statement, which is the participant disclosure, to ascertain the add-on fees that Nationwide had attached to the mutual funds. So when we look down at this table, similar to the others, there's a column that is the net expense ratio of the actual investment, the mutual fund, the fee that Nationwide puts on top of that, and then the third column is the actual plan paid expense. So if we look at that first one, the American Funds Income Fund of America, the R5 share class, its expense ratio in the open market is 0.36%. But when you add Nationwide's 200 basis points or 2% charge on top of that, this client was paying 2.36% for the same fund. As I said at the beginning of my comments, I'm the former CEO of ePlan Services. Once Paychex acquired my business in 2011, I served as the National Director of Retirement Advisory for Paychex for a period of 2 years. My job was to reach out to financial advisors and see how we could help them better manage their practice and help their clients better manage their 401k plans. One of the things I discovered was that there was a need in the marketplace for an independent fiduciary advisor service that could work with any 401k provider as well as any financial advisor. So in 2013, I left to start FI 401k Advisors. We're an organization dedicated to helping small business owners, their executive officers, as well as their financial advisors, build better 401k plans for their plan participants. As a result, we will engage with or either directly with a client or alongside a financial advisor to serve as the outsourced professional fiduciary advisor, which is a safe harbor afforded under the Pension Protection Act. In that role, we can function as either a simple investment consultant, where we're educating and informing the fiduciaries on how to make the decisions, but the decision at the end of the day is that of the plan sponsor or other fiduciaries of the plan. Many other employers look to outsource the complete investment management, whereby they engage us as what is known as an ERISA 338 investment manager. As an appointed fiduciary to the plan, we accept discretionary authority from the plan, whereby we are the manager of the investment options. It is our duty to make sure that the plan is managed correctly, that the investments are monitored on a consistent basis, and make decisions as we deem appropriate regarding the replacement of underperforming investment options. More importantly, all of this gives plan sponsors and advisors additional protections, as I said, under the Pension Protection